Good morning, Mentorship Revolution, community, friends, and family. Welcome to the MR Podcast. This is Hannah Lassiter, your main speaker, host, and the founder of Mentorship Revolution. Also, the new author of Poetry for Girls That Struggle, which is now available on ebook at Amazon.com under that name. So, I just published a podcast talking about leadership and how I dedicated our monthly question column, the 14th edition, to that. And I want to continue talking about that because to me, leadership is a very focal point. And I would say that, as I said, leadership is a development process. And which means it doesn't happen overnight. And the skills, the responsibilities that you learn as a leader takes time to kind of spring up, maybe, if I would say. So that's the reason I do believe that, some people show leadership potential, but really leadership is a mindset. So if you make up your mind that you want to be a leader, then you can, because it's really just action after action that's being performed to develop a certain type of character trait. So I want to talk about, in this particular unit of the leadership part, is that there are usually some obstacles, as I said in the last podcast. Sometimes there appears to be obstacles that is presented. And I think that that's really purposeful, because if you're going to lead in general, it's going to be an obstacle itself. Leadership is the obstacle itself, because you're really dealing with the world. So anytime you're dealing with the world, it's going to be an obstacle as far as one person having that much pressure on themselves to perform or to direct others. So I think the reason why obstacles usually appear before we realize we're leaders is because if you are unaware of obstacles or hurdles that's going to get in the way, you're not prepared, because you'll go into leadership and you will find that you won't find it really something that fits your swag in a way, because pretty much it's inevitable that you're going to deal with people. You're going to deal with personalities. You're going to deal with people. You're going to deal with rules and commands and, following regulations and keeping those regulations in place. So that's the reason why leadership is not a tough alley. But at the same time, it really does depend on the context of the leadership and where the leadership is taking place at, because some places the leadership has different expectations than other places. But as a leader, really, you honestly have to get that firsthand. You have to see it firsthand. And I think many people will be encouraged to lead more if they saw firsthand leaders in their life, people who had a leadership mentality versus a lay back and see what happens mentality, or a mentality of I do what others do, or, I treat as others treat me. And, that really doesn't lead to a very successful person. Some people can succeed with that mentality, but I think a successful mentality isn't a laid back mentality in what you want. And it's just like leadership, you have to keep trying. And if you really think you're meant to lead, you will find opportunities, but you also have to do the work that's involved in leadership, which means start working under someone else or start in the background. But eventually, if you have a voice and if you have a strength about you, and if you have a certain level of way of, being able to handle different situations, people will notice that. Someone will notice you, and someone will actually ask you to take on a leadership role. So leadership is one of those things that, we all can be leaders. I don't believe that, and I mean, we see it today. We see so much in the media, different examples of leadership, whether it's bad leadership or good leadership. We see how anyone can really lead. And that also goes into the topic of bad leadership. So, of course, we want to aim for good leadership, but we do see examples of bad leadership. And bad leadership usually leads to unhappy people. It usually leads to war. It usually leads to conflict more than peace. Bad leadership leads to bickering and arguing, and bad leadership, it really discourages others. It's probably the poorest example of leadership that there can be. Now, I don't know which is worse, bad leadership or no leadership. But I would certainly say that bad leadership. Now, I would say this, the advantage that bad leadership has over no leadership at all is that when you have no leadership at all, you don't even know how to compare when you have never seen leadership or never really understood it. But when you have seen bad leadership, if you're intelligent enough to know what good leadership is, you know how to pick out the parts that work and put the other parts into the waste bin that never really should have been involved anyway. So that is the advantage of bad leadership, is that whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your family, or whether it was a friend or someone who you trusted and you thought that they were powerful maybe, or maybe you thought they were someone who would really look out for you, or, you respected them highly. When you found that they really weren't who they said they were, or maybe there's some bones in their closet or whatever, which, skeletons in their closet. But the thing is about it, if they were genuinely a leader at all, even if they weren't a perfect leader, an all-around good leader, you can pick out the pieces that are worth examining and really keeping in alignment with. And that's the good thing about even bad leadership, is that we can because we're all intelligent creatures, we can be able to discern what is the good and what is the bad. So I guess I will be dedicating more podcasts to leadership because I enjoy talking about it, and it just makes me think over my life and how I've always felt that desire to lead and be a leader. And I've never really liked being one that was just submissive in a sense where I didn't feel I could express my, what ideas I had, or, what plans, or like whatever. I've just always had that mentality. That's the reason why I believe leadership is a mentality. And there is so much more that can be said about it. But it's early in the morning, and I've just been talking about leadership, and I said I'll go ahead and dedicate a few podcasts to leadership. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your morning and stay tuned for more podcasts.